Tucker Carlson did an hour and 51 minutes with the New York Times, and there's some gems in here.
And sort of like you're in this kind of dreamland. It's like smoking hash or something. It's interesting. Very interesting.
I'm Lulu Garcia-Navarro, and I'm in Maine to interview Tucker Carlson. For many years, Carlson was one of President Trump's most vocal supporters.
I mean, I've always agreed with Trump's policies, always. And here I am with a full-throated, utterly sincere endorsement of Donald Trump.
But recently, Carlson has publicly broken with Trump. He's not only come out against Trump's decision to go to war with Iran.
This is the single most foolish thing any American president has ever done.
He now says he regrets supporting the president.
We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be.
And has become a vocal and influential critic of the administration.
This whole thing is like dooming anyone connected to it.
A man who can read the room.
For the foreseeable future, including the entire Republican Party.
This puts Carlson at the center of a major battle on the right over Israel, over foreign interventions, and over the post-Trump world itself. Here's my interview with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson.
Thanks for having me.
Why does Cenk like Tucker so much? Same reason why every Bangladeshi unk loves him. I swear to God, I think I know what the turning point is. Tucker Carlson defended Muslims a couple times, and that's what it took. And my unk turned into a Bangladeshi unk on a WhatsApp chat. It goes a long way, chatters, I'm telling you. And Cenk is like not like a Muslim unk at all, right? He's like American through and through. But when you got a white boy, I mean, just country white, okay? We're talking, well, not country club white. Tucker Carlson is the definition of a wasp in the dictionary. When you got a guy like that, especially a guy who is not only like critical of Israel, but also defensive of Islamophobia, a guy who has been a prominent leader in the right-wing movement, come out and defend Islam and defend Muslims, it's over. That played a big role, I think, in my unk assessment. And Cenk is not even like remotely Muslim. I mean, he's Mr. Atheist, right? He's like a little bit of a edgy Reddit atheist almost, even though he has duked it out with Sam Harris for years over the Islamophobia stuff. So it's obviously important to him, right? This is like an issue. It's understandable. It's an issue that pertains to social justice. From his perspective, Tucker Carlson coming out and like attacking Islamophobia, saying that like Israel is fomenting Islamophobia, that was huge, I think.
Me.
Very excited for you to be here.
Thank you.
In Maine, we should say. Any excuse to come to Maine is always a good reason.
Most people don't come to this part of Maine, so I'm grateful that you did.
All parts of Maine are good parts. I wanted to sit down with you for a number of reasons. You've been at the center of conservative media, obviously, for a very long time. By extension, it's politics. And I want to get your perspective on this moment, on your evolution, your worldview. You recently made quite a dramatic break with President Trump over the war in Iran, and so I'd love to hear about that. I want to start, though, in the lead up to the conflict. You said that you spoke to the president several times about the plan to attack Iran before it actually happened on February 28th. I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Was it just you and the president in those meetings? Can you just give me a sense of what was going on there?
Well, I've been speaking to him about Iran for 10 years.
Right.
Literally since 2016, maybe 15, because there was enormous pressure on him, as there has been on many presidents, to regime change Iran. And we know, based on our experience with a much smaller country, Iraq, that's a tall order, and it doesn't necessarily lead to a place you want to go, and it's not good for the United States. So anyway, and Trump knew that, and that was one of the main reasons, actually, that I supported him during, my time at Fox News and campaigned for him. And so it was really central to my views of Trump's candidacy and presidency. And so when it became clear in June that we were starting down this road toward a regime change war with Iran, I was baffled. I was very upset, not because I have allegiance to Iran, but because I thought it would be terrible for the United States, as it has been, worse even than I imagined. But I could see exactly where this was going, and he was under enormous pressure to do this, once again, as all presidents in my lifetime have been. So we talked a lot in June. He embarked on this effort to take out Iran's nuclear program, which was really just the opening salvo in a regime change effort. He knew that. I told him that. Charlie Kirk told him that. We did it we got out. And then it became clear this winter in January that we were moving toward this thing that we're in now. And I was just absolutely panicked about it.
Did he explain to you why he wanted to take the country into war? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the dynamics of that conversation. What was he
Well, there were
saying?
multiple conversations.
Right.
I flew to Washington 3 times in the month before, 5 weeks, 6 weeks before, and met with him in the Oval Office alone, and people file in and out with the White House Chief of Staff, the Secretary of State, et cetera. Had lunch with him on one of those occasions, and then I spoke to him by phone many times on this topic. And he would begin almost every conversation with, do you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? To which I said, well, I'm sort of opposed to nuclear weapons. I don't want nuclear weapons. I don't want Israel to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want anyone to have a nuclear weapon. It doesn't seem like a good thing. But that's not the question. The question is, what do you do about it? And that was kind of the end of the rationale for doing this. He never seemed enthusiastic about it, ever. And I would say, well, here are the potential effects of this. Obviously, the geography of Iran being the most important fact of Iran. Iran is not a military power, it's an economic power. That was obvious because it controls the greatest span of coastline along the Persian Gulf, which is the source of a fifth of the world's energy, et cetera, all well known now and well known to him then. And he, I think, perfectly understood the consequences. But
why was he taking your calls then? Because if he knew your position and he understood the perils, I mean, was he trying to convince you to back the war?
No. He made no effort to convince me at all, other than to say it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. And I just didn't feel that way. None of this, I should say, was about Trump or my relationship with Trump or my feelings about Trump.
I don't trust Tucker at all, but I think this stuff is very believable. Him having numerous conversations with Trump around Iran, I totally believe it. And especially Donald Trump turning around and going, nah, everything's going to be all right. That has been reported on. That has been reported on extensively, and I 100% believe that conversation took place like that. Exactly like that, where he was like, nah, it'll be fine. That is literally Trump's modus operandi. That's his MO. He just goes, oh, you think this is going to be a cataclysmic sequence of events that will destabilize the entire planet? No, it'll be fine. I don't understand why he cares about Iran. 2 reasons. 1, at this point, I think Tucker Carlson is somewhat of a Pat Buchanan-style isolationist, right? Which is ironic because for many, many years, he shit on Pat Buchanan. Now, do I believe that Tucker Carlson's main reason for supporting Trump's political rise was his impression of his opposition to the war in Iraq and a new war with Iran? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. He's lying about that. He's a grifter. That is retconning of history. However, I do believe that he was telling Trump not to wage war with Iran because anyone with like 3.5 brain cells could see exactly how the situation was going to unfold. We knew it, and I don't think I'm necessarily smart. I don't think I'm a particularly intelligent person. I think I have just common sense, right? So Tucker Carlson most likely understood that waging war with Iran at the behest of Israel would be unbelievably bad for America's geopolitical power posture, America's political future, America's capabilities of force projection. It would play a role in the death of American empire. Tucker Carlson loves the American empire.
Or his hair color or anything like that. I just didn't want the United States to go to war with Iran. And my strong feeling by the end of those conversations, which was the last one was probably a week before it began, the war began, was that he felt he had no choice and that he was resigned to it. He was unhappy about it. He didn't seem enthusiastic at all. There was no effort to say, once we do this, the United States will be at peace, we'll be safe, we'll be more prosperous. There was none of that. Zero.
I mean, you speak to many people in the administration, and I'm just trying to understand the fault lines over this. I mean, who was for the war? Who was against it while all this was being discussed?
I mean, I'm guessing to a certain extent. I do talk to a lot of people there still, but I don't work there. So I don't,
sure.
It's hard to really know. There are people with a long record of making bellicose noises about Iran. They still work there. So specifically the Secretary of State / National Security Advisor has, said for many, many years, Iran is the greatest threat we face, which is a ludicrous statement, but has
talking
said
about Marco Rubio.
That'd be correct. But that said, I didn't hear a single time from anyone, including from the Secretary of State himself, who I spoke to about this, any enthusiasm for doing this. My strong impression, and I could be wrong because I don't work there, is that no one in the building was pushing for this, at least overtly, that all the pressure was coming from outside. Constant calls from donors and people with influence over the president, well-known Rupert Murdoch, Mary Mandelson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then a small constellation of, I guess they'd be called influencers, beginning with Mark Levin, but there were others, Sean Hannity, pushing the president to do this and telling him that you will be a figure out of history, you will save and redeem Israel or something. I think that was the case they were making. And I didn't hear of anybody making the case that this would be good for the United States. I don't think that was ever a conversation.
I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about the president's mindset during this period.
Yes.
And part of it is, of course, about what happened after Venezuela and the successful, in their view, operation there, removing Maduro from office, and that he felt sort of emboldened by that, the success of that operation, and that he felt that this was going to be similar, that he underestimated the Iranians and what they might do in response to an attack.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think the Venezuela operation allowed him to retreat into a kind of fantasy in which he told himself this is going to be easy. But I don't think he believed that. And I should say, having spoken to him a lot in this calendar year, I detected no evidence at all of dementia, mental decline. You hear people say, well, he's gone, soft. That was not my impression at all. Trump is not well informed on a lot of topics, for sure, is proudly ignorant on a lot of topics, but he has kind of remarkable powers of insight into people and power dynamics. Like, you don't get to be president by accident. The guy's smart in the ways that matter politically. And my strong read was that he was doing this against his will. Famously, the head of the Counterterrorism Center, one of the top intel officials in the country, Joe Kent, resigned shortly after the war began and said,
"Oh my God, listen. Oh, dude. Stabbed in the back." Remember those words. I have in the past been critical of people criticizing me for saying like, oh, Tucker Carlson says Trump is a slave to Israel. This is him working through the steps of regenerating a stabbed in the back myth for the glorious President Donald Trump and the glorious American nationalist movement that unfortunately made the mistake of listening to the Jews. $100. For those of you who don't know, stabbed in the back is a myth from an anti-Semitic conceptualization from Nazi Germany era, the Nazi Germany era, the idea that like Jews stabbed Germany in the back and therefore they must be punished. What he is doing right here, because look, I also think Israel urged and goaded and maybe even duped Trump into taking action in Iran. So I guess by some estimation, and I think my analysis is factoring in simply the truth, right? There is a little bit of an alignment with what Tucker and I are seeing. But if you actually scratch the surface, you realize that Tucker's sentiment here is to preserve the integrity and the myth of American imperialism being a force of good. I don't have that assessment. I don't believe that American imperialism and American empire is a source of good. Tucker does. So what he's basically trying to design here is the notion that Israel, the Jewish state, he will never say it was the Jews that did it until it's like permissible to openly say that, right? Like until, there is no stigma whatsoever associated with that. That's what I mean when I say openly say that. But his assessment is most likely that, right? But he won't say it. But it's very clear that Tucker Carlson is trying to create this idea that not only in Iran, but also in Iraq as well, if you listen closely to what he says, that Israel was the one that manipulated the American administrations, both in the past and currently, into taking action that they did not want to take. The idea that Donald Trump reluctantly waged war with Iran is wrong. It's just wrong. He was not reluctant to wage war with Iran. The most charitable interpretation of actual events that took place is that Donald Trump thought foolishly that it would be similar to the Venezuela operation. But he was enthusiastic about waging war with Iran. I will never believe the idea that like Donald Trump was forced, his hand was forced in the waging war with Iran. He really didn't want to do it. Same with Iraq. Americans just did not want to wage war with Iraq at all. But Israel, got America somehow to go and wage war with Iraq. Did Israel play a role in Iraq? Absolutely. It's obvious. They did. Benjamin Netanyahu came and delivered a very famous speech to Congress. Israel was very enthusiastic, no matter how the pro-Israeli side tries to make it seem like, Israel was not on board. American Jews were not on board, obviously, with the war in Iraq, as they are not on board with the war in Iran either, because they're American Jews. They're American. They're American first. They're just Jews who happen to live in America. The idea that they are unbelievably loyal and only care about Israel is definitely presented by a lot of Jewish institutions, but if you look at the polling, you realize that that's not necessarily the truth. Having said that, I don't make the same distinction for Iran, and you might say, why? Because with Iran, there is definitely a divergence in interests. Okay, has America always wanted to blow up Iran? Certainly, for 47 years. But no president has ever done so. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been unbelievably servile and unbelievably loyal to the interests of Israel, unlike any other president, with maybe the exception of Joe Biden. With Iraq, that was events set in motion far before Benjamin Netanyahu came and delivered a speech in front of Congress. But like I'm repeating over and over again, this is important to understand. And this is something that I've been very critical of, like the Nick Fuentes of the world on as well. Their ideas, their worldview revolves around this false notion that American imperialism specifically, is a force for good. It tames the wild beasts of the world. And America can only do wrong if it's actually goaded into or forced through blackmail, hypnosis, whatever you want to call it. Only when American leadership is forced into taking these actions, and even when the leadership takes those actions, they're actually reluctantly taking those actions. That's what Tucker Carlson is saying here. It's a way to preserve the integrity of America. It's a very nationalistic mythos.
Exactly the same
That's the major distinction between my analysis of the situation and someone like Tucker Carlson's.
thing. I think this decision is connected to a series of seemingly disconnected events, all of which revolve around violence. And we need to find out more about how this happened. And he was, of course, dismissed and threatened with an F.
Yes, it's a weird way to absolve America's crimes and the centrality of blame and put it back on Israel instead of both countries. And that is the reason why this is a very appealing sentiment for many Americans who already have that American exceptionalist attitude regardless. That's what's so terrifying about this prospect, and that's precisely the reason why, for two reasons. One, it's much easier to blame the Jews than to blame ourselves. Number two, when you do blame Israel, you actually lean into the idea that America is an exceptional country and America is not a violent country, or if America is violent, it's actually doing that violence as a necessary form of violence. And sometimes it can appear as cruel, but you simply don't understand it. That cruelty is unfortunately necessary because our enemies are far crueler than we ever could be. So those two factors make Tucker Carlson's rhetoric infinitely more appealing than my rhetoric, because you can turn around and say, Hassan hates America. His name is Hassan. He's Muslim. He's an Islamist fundamentalist. He's a jihadist. He's an Islamo-communist. All this stuff. He's so critical of America. He hates America. He says America is bad. America bad. That's all he says. Liberals align with that unbelievably reactionary belief system as well. It's not just Republicans who 100% agree with that assessment. There are plenty of liberals who agree with it too, because American exceptionalism is bipartisan. And that's precisely the reason why this kind of nefarious propagandizing is, in my opinion, from the perspective of many Americans, much easier to understand. We lay the blame entirely in the hands of Israel. And in the interim, in the short term, this might be a successful way to decouple from Israel, and maybe some people are making that dangerous calculation. But in the long term, this will not solve the problems at all. After all, if it wasn't Israel, but if it was just America directly slaughtering kids in Gaza, would that be appropriate? Because the reality of the matter is, Israel is a vestige of empire, and therefore, when Israel is slaughtering children in Gaza, we are slaughtering children in Gaza.
FBI investigation, and no one kind of followed up on that. And again, I don't know the answer, but this was not a normal decision-making process. And my strong impression was that Trump was more a hostage than a sovereign decision maker in this.
Well, so tell me what you're getting at when you say the president of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, had no choice.
I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm just telling you what I observed. He seemed, and that's kind of the question. And what I'm really fascinated by is the lack of curiosity on display into how exactly this happened. What are the mechanisms by which a guy who's supposedly sovereign, in charge, granted this authority by voters, tens of millions of them, can't make a decision in the country's interest or even in his own interest? He knew, and I know he knew because I talked to him about it directly, that the consequences, potential consequences, were profound and profoundly bad. The end of his presidency, to start, which I think it has proven to be, he knew that. And he wasn't, this is my read, and I could be completely wrong. I don't know what's in his head, and I don't want to overstate my knowledge at all, but this is my strong perception on the basis of many conversations on this topic. He felt he had no choice. And he said to me, everything's going to be okay. Because I was getting overwrought. Don't do this. The people pushing you to do this hate you. They're your enemies. This will destroy you. This will gravely harm our country. We've got kids. I'm hoping for grandkids. Let's not go there. And he said, it's going to be all right. And he said, do you know how I know that? And I said, no. He said, because it always is. And I do think there's a kind of, Teddy Rooseveltian optimism there, but that's not really what it was. And this is my read. That was more a kind of justification from a man who feels he has no choice. And that is my strong view. And not just my strong view, the view of others who were around him and involved in this deliberation, to the extent it was a deliberation, which is not much. Who
are the other people around him who had that view?
I can't speak for the views of others, but I will just say once again.
He's going to say J.D. Vance because this entire exercise is, in my opinion, to gain legitimacy and credibility in the anti-war movement, in the anti-Iran war movement specifically, so he can lend that credibility either to the likes of J.D. Vance or maybe even for himself or potentially Marco Rubio. I think he's playing his cards close to the chest right now. It's either going to be Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, or maybe even Tucker himself.
That I never saw, nor did I hear about anybody who works for the Trump administration, anybody who was enthusiastically pushing this war on Trump, going in and being like, you know what, you want to be a truly great, you want to make this country great again? We need a regime change effort in Iran. And instead, there were a lot of cowardly people, as there always are, and Trump engenders cowardice in the people around him through intimidation. And there is a kind of quality that he has that's spellbinding, and I think it probably literally is a spell. And the effect is to weaken people around him and make them more compliant and more confused. And I've experienced this myself. You spend a day with Trump and sort of like you're in this kind of dreamland. It's like smoking hash or something. It's interesting, very interesting. And there may be a supernatural component to it. I'm not a theologian, but it's real. And anyone who's been around him can tell you it's real. But whatever the cause, no one around him was weighing in strongly, as far as I know, on either side, for or against. But people from the outside were strongly weighing in, calling him constantly.
I'm going to give an alternative view on what may have happened.
Yes.
Which is...
And you may be right, by the way, because I don't want to overstate what I know.
Sure. I just want to due diligence. We've seen the president in his second term be much more interested in foreign policy, as many presidents are, much more open to taking action, not only in Venezuela, talking about Cuba, wanting the Nobel Peace Prize, weighing into situations in which he wasn't terribly interested in his first term.
For sure.
And so...
That's real.
Could that not be part of this?
It's a huge part of it. And there's no question about that. And all presidents decide at some point that they're not interested in running the United States because it's hard. And how do you fix Baltimore and Gary, Indiana? And what do you do about homelessness in Los Angeles? Like, these are hard questions. We can't even make Head Start work, despite, many billions and a lot of sort of well-meaning.
How about you shut your mouth on stuff you know nothing about and leave it up to experts like a local defense contractor? True. The mom and pop local defense contractors. I apologize to official Lockheed Martin, their official account in the chat. Clearly I was wrong.
People working, spending their lives on it, can't make it work. So these are hard problems, and I think it's universal. It's a universal experience among American presidents, but also among U.S. senators to decide, like, I'd rather run the world because the details are opaque. I don't speak these languages. I can seem, well, first of all, it's a display of male power. send the bombs in, kill the bad people. But moreover, you get to feel like I did something, and that's important. And I get it. And this is, again, as you wisely note, a process that all presidents tend to go through. And so Venezuela, Cuba, I object to both of those efforts very strongly, but neither one, in my view, risks the future of the United States in the way that the Iran war now does. And so it's a big deal. But because it is, by the way, a contiguous neighbor of Iraq, and because Trump spent years talking about what a terrible idea the Iraq invasion was, in fact, defined his candidacy in 2016 on.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything, man. Like, what the oh my God, how could Trump do this after he said so much about how dangerous the Iraq invasion was? Clearly something changed dramatically. I don't know. It's not like Donald Trump was actually a peaceful dove. Wow, he lied. Wow, I can't believe Donald Trump lied. What else? I wonder what else he must have lied about. What else did he lie about? For example, he said he was going to drain the swamp. The D.C. swamp has been swampier than ever since Donald Trump got his money molestation paws on it, especially in the second term. He even lied about locking Hillary Clinton up, which was an unfathomable L. It could have been the one upside. There's like little baby upside. And Hillary Clinton still roams free. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, Russia, Ukraine fixed by day one. He just lies about everything. It's easier to find something that he said that is like truthful than it is to calculate all the lies. Yeah, new Trump truth. I will soon be reviewing the plan that Iran has just sent to us, but can't imagine that it would be acceptable in that they have not yet paid a big enough price for what they have done to humanity and the world over the last 47 years. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump.
At that point, it's hard for me to believe that he just sort of organically reached this place at the end of February. He's like, oh, I think it's a good idea. He did not think it was a good idea. Shutting down a fifth of the world's oil and gas? Of all people, Trump knows that's bad.
You said he's a hostage just now. You told the BBC he's a slave to foreign interests.
Correct.
So I just want to ask you to be sort of explicit. I mean, Trump is being held hostage by whom? Or by who?
Benjamin
Or by
Netanyahu and by his many advocates in the United States. And we know that not simply because Trump started the war on February 28th, but because he couldn't get out.
See, then it's the modern Bailey. Like, now he's going to, when asked a direct question, he's going to go back to like very reasonable criticism, right? Like his starting point was like, Trump is very clearly reluctant. The real question here isn't just to ask him like, who's doing this? The real question isn't who's doing this, because everyone knows who's doing it. It's correct. Tucker Carlson is saying something true. The foundation for defending democracy is literally an Israeli cutout in Washington, D.C. The administration just yesterday posted a foundation for defending democracy graph. Like, they are not hiding it. They've copied and pasted FDD statements. FDD is straight up an Israeli cutout. That's all it is. Its original name was called Emet, which means truth in Hebrew. Its stated goal when it was incepted was to do advocacy for Israel in the United States of America. This is not a secret. So just understand that when the admin is doing that and hiring an FDD guy, it's very obvious. Yeah, Trump admin as negotiating team Nick Stewart from FDD Action joining Witkoff's peace missions office. Like, that is an Israeli agent, okay? FDD was founded in 2001 as Emet, Hebrew for truth. And in their initial IRS filings, they wrote, not Hudson, not the Washington Post, they wrote that their purpose was to provide education to enhance Israel's image in North America. One is welcome to believe that a group that explicitly states its purpose for existing to enhance Israel's image in North America does not advocate for Israel's interests, but this would not be a credible position. Anyway, so it's very clear.
Out of it. He declares we're having a ceasefire. This was 4 weeks in. He says we're having a ceasefire and we're having these talks and they're going great and we're going to open the strait. And Iran says, yeah, one of our conditions is Israel's got to pull back from southern Lebanon. You can't use the Iran war as a pretext for stealing more land from a sovereign country. That's not your country. Like, no. And it's not just Iran who felt that way. I think the rest of the world's like, what are you doing? I thought we were, fighting the great existential threat, Iran, and now you're taking the opportunity to take Lebanon shore of the Litani River and bombing downtown Beirut. Like, what is this? Anyway, this was all very well known. And within hours of Trump announcing this, Israel publicly, in a way that was designed to get the attention of everyone, including the Iranians, starts killing civilians in Lebanon. Now, what was the point of that? Not to secure the Israeli homeland. The point of that was to end any talk of a negotiated settlement, to keep this going until Iran was destroyed and chaotic, which is the Israeli goal. I'm not attacking Israel by saying that. Their goals are different from ours. They're a different country.
Yeah, they would argue, of course, that what they are doing is neutralizing the threat that has been persistent in Lebanon through Hezbollah.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, they invaded Lebanon in 1982. Okay, so that was 44 years ago. They've had a lot of experience in Lebanon, a lot. They've had a lot of time to fix Lebanon. They killed Nasrallah. They blew up Hezbollah with explosive.
Again, Israel's evil is so severe and so flagrant that Tucker Carlson, an American fascist, can make decent commentary on it and look like the good guy in comparison when he's objectively not the good guy. Just because he might be the better guy comparably to Israel in this equation doesn't mean that he is a good guy at all. The other problem here is that you can't talk to Tucker Carlson as a liberal Zionist. This is the exact same issue that The Economist ran into. If you put a liberal Zionist in front of Tucker Carlson, that is the easiest environment for Tucker Carlson to win, for Tucker Carlson to look great in comparison to even the New York Times. You have to put an anti-Zionist in front of Tucker Carlson. That's the only way to highlight the contradictions.
Pagers, like they've done a lot since October 7th in Lebanon. They chose that moment to derail the negotiations. And they've done this repeatedly. And so my perspective as an American is, look, we're the United States. We're a country of 350 million people. You are wholly dependent on us. You're a country of 9 million people with no natural resources. I'm not against you, but like we're not co-equals here. But the point I'm making is Trump could not restrain Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the one person Trump could not say, hey, settle down, or we'll just defund you and your country will collapse in about 10 minutes, which is true. Israel can't defend itself without the United States, despite whatever propaganda you may have heard. So, again, it's not an attack on Israel. It's an attack.
Mehdi Hassan, oh my God. Oh my God. Someone like myself would do very well, I think, in front of Tucker Carlson, but Mehdi Hassan is like the perfect antidote. That would be like the perfect counter, especially because Mehdi is like liberal enough too. Tucker would never do it. Tucker won't even talk to me.
Attack on American leadership for not constraining its partner in a way that helps the United States. Trump said, I want a negotiated settlement. Israel stopped the settlement. Trump refused to even criticize Netanyahu in public. Are you joking? That's slavery. That is total control of one man by another. And it's, that's between Trump and Bibi and God, as far as I'm concerned. But as an American, that's our president, our elected president, whose job is to protect our country and our interests and our economy. And he is looking out for Israel first. That's outrageous. And no amount of like, oh, you're an anti-Semite, which I'm not, and I'm never going to be, is going to stop me from noting that that's outrageous. It is outrageous.
Before we just move on, I am curious about this one point, which is obviously Israel has tried to exert its influence on a number of presidents. Many presidents have been asked.
That's music to my ears. The New York Times saying that when, if you said those words, which are true, and we all know this to be true, it is unbelievable to hear a New York Times journalist say those words. Chatters, many of you only learned about Israel and the shit that it's been up to in the last couple of years. But if you've been at this game for a long time, like the idea that the New York Times would say Israel has tried to exert influence over every American president. Oh, wow. God, the permission boundaries have expanded so much. Yeah, she said, obviously. She even started with obviously. Oh, was it obvious? It was obvious to me. You say that 4 years ago, you're going to anti-Semitism prison. You say that 4 years ago, you are never having a career. Your media career is over. If you say that at the Jiffy Lube, your job at the Jiffy Lube is over. You can't work for another auto mechanic for the rest of your dang life. You got to move different zip codes. Canary Mission's coming after you. They're doxing you. They're doxing your family. They're doxing your dog. So the fact that the New York Times, the paper of record, and its representative is openly saying, obviously, oof, times have changed.
To decapitate Iran, to do a joint military operation in the Middle East, which this is the first time really that this has happened, where the United States and Israel are doing a joint military operation against a Muslim country. And I'm just wondering why you think other presidents didn't have that influence, because they obviously were subjected to the same pressures, the same donors, the same Bibi Netanyahu who's been there since the 90s. I mean, what do you think has materially changed that made Trump more susceptible to that influence?
I mean, that's kind of the question that I would like answered, and I don't know the answer, as noted. But one argument could be, well, Trump is just uniquely weak. Okay, but that was not my perception. I think Trump obviously has weaknesses, and a lot of his posturing is compensatory. Of course, I'm not interested in psychoanalyzing Trump, but that's just clear. But what was it about this moment that allowed a foreign leader to have this level of influence over an American leader? And I don't know the answer, but again, I think it's worth finding out. I would also note that, and this is not a defense of Trump, hardly, this is the single most foolish thing any American president has ever done, in my opinion. I say that with sadness.
I'm serious when I say this. I think Tucker Carlson's defending Trump here. I know to the untrained eye, it looks like he's cooking Trump. But now that I've heard him expand, now that I'm hearing him expand on the idea that Trump is a slave, because when I say Trump is a slave to Israel, like my assessment is not, oh, Trump is technically blameless here. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, is very clearly designing this narrative that like Trump actually didn't want to do this at all and was somehow a victim, was somehow forced into doing it. We'll see how Trump responds to this interview too. I want to know.
But many American presidents have put Israel's interests before our own. I would say the Iraq War was a very obvious example of that. I mean,
he's not defending Trump. He's extending sympathy for his base. I think he's not extending sympathy, but you're right. You're right there. He's trying to maintain the base for what comes next.
Cheney's office was completely controlled, and I knew almost all of them, by people who were putting Israel's interests above America's interests. So I think the Iraq War was, to a great extent, a product of that. And I believe that Trump felt exactly the same way, because I talked to him about it a lot. So, like, what changed about Trump? What changed after 10 years, more than 10 years, of telling us our leadership is weak, they act against our interests, they're stupid, they're foolish, they're bought off by foreign powers and by domestic donors? I mean, that was Trump's case. That was his whole pitch. That's why he got elected. To switch on something this big in the space of a few months, I mean, that bears some examination. That's all I'm saying.
I want to note, in 2020, when President Trump killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, you went on your Fox show and said, and I'm going to quote here, "There are a lot of awful, bad people in the world. You can't kill them all. It's not our job." And you asked, why are we jumping into another quagmire from which there is no obvious exit? But it wasn't until...
Isn't he making Trump fully accountable for saying he's mentally stable? No. Him claiming Trump's mental stability, saying that Trump is mentally stable, is not to actually like redirect the blame back to him. It's to say there are other dangerous forces that took this mentally competent man and forced his hand into taking action here. It's precisely because he doesn't say Trump is actually insane, he's like lost a step, he's out of his mind, that led me to arrive at this conclusion. He's saying Trump is competent. He's just saying that there are more powerful forces, puppeteers, holding the puppet strings above Trump's head. I think his implication is it's blackmail, by the way. I think that's the narrative through line. Israel, Epstein files, blackmail, which, by the way, you know, it's not that crazy of a theory, I'll admit. Like, I don't think it's that crazy of a theory at all. Like, every time Donald Trump is throughout this Iran stuff, like, I mean, even Melania coming out and just giving an advanced warning about how she had no affiliations with Jeffrey Epstein whatsoever, right after the ceasefire negotiation that Trump put together with Iran against Israel's demands. I don't know. Awfully suspicious timing from Melania Trump to come out and defend herself in advance against whatever might come out.
I was not heralded for saying that. I don't think I've ever been more criticized. I just really quickly note, I'm opposed not simply to foreign interventions, as you said. I mean, most of them anyway, those not undertaken in self-defense. I'm against the whole frame. I'm against the idea that
I agree with the theory here, but how does that defend or even absolve Trump? It pins him back to being a pedophile. It doesn't have to be him. Here, are you ready? I'll tell you a beautiful story. I'll present it just like Tucker would, in a way that like still preserves the integrity of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a rich guy in Palm Springs, was around a lot of powerful people. And maybe he didn't know what those powerful people were up to. Jeffrey Epstein certainly seemed to be one of those powerful people. There's plenty of photos with Donald Trump pictured around Jeffrey Epstein. But Donald Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein had done something wrong. He has tremendous insight. He's a people pleaser, but he also can read people. So he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. But the damage was already done. There's a lot of loved ones that Donald Trump had in his orbit that he wanted to defend. Perhaps Israel was using some of those loved ones, like Melania Trump. After all, what powerful man would allow their wife, their loving partner, to be disparaged, ritualistically humiliated in media? What's going on? So it was actually how honorable Trump was with the Epstein stuff that caused him to, try to defend his wife or another loved one. You know what I mean?
Hezbollah and Hamas are at the center of our domestic conversation. Like, they're the big problems we face. They're not. Like, they're not a bigger problem than like the behavior of Citibank. I'm sorry. Credit card debt is a much bigger problem than Hezbollah will ever be. So stop with this. Stop with the brainwashing. This is bonkers. I live here. I'm almost 57. I've lived here a long time. Hamas and Hezbollah, while they're not getting my endorsement, are not relevant to the experience of most Americans. So like, once you start thinking like that, you betrayed your country.
So it wasn't until President Trump threatened Iran's civilian infrastructure with a profane Truth Social post this past Easter Sunday that you actually started quite explicitly speaking out against him.
Yeah, you can't attack Jesus. How's that?
Well, in a monologue on your show, you said, "How dare you speak that way on Easter morning to the country?" Tell me what you were responding to right then, because it really is, I think, a seminal moment for you in terms of publicly breaking with the president.
So I will say, I don't do monologues. That's ad lib. So that's just, I didn't write it. I don't have notes. It's just like, that's how I feel. So it's probably not as coherent as it should be. But that was really just an emotional reaction to the experience of waking up on Easter Sunday, the holiest day on the Christian calendar, and a day of joy and hope, literally the resurrection of Jesus, and seeing Donald Trump using profanity, threatening to...
He just mocked you, saying he wouldn't endorse Hezbollah. Yeah, that's why the New York Times is not doing a 2-hour sit down with me and is doing a 2-hour sit down with this danger, Tucker Carlson. What the f do you think is the reason? Because Tucker Carlson is unbelievably safe. By the standards of being critical of American foreign policy, Tucker Carlson has spent most of his career as a commentator defending American foreign policy. Well, the New York Times did do a podcast with you. Buddy, this is very different than that, okay? This is the interview portion. It's an entirely separate segment designed around understanding the nuances of one singular person. Very different than me going on Ross Douthat's show to get yelled at by Ross Douthat at a time when, right after Charlie Kirk's assassination, they were trying to present me as a dangerous figure that should be prosecuted by the American government and not some liberal like Jimmy Kimmel. That's what Ross Douthat was trying to do in that convo, trying to jam me up. Or, I don't know, going on New York Times podcast to talk about like micro-looting or whatever the This is very different.
Murder civilians. I mean, that's a crime. That's a moral crime. So to brag about that and then to mock Islam, I don't think you should mock people's faith. I don't care if it's Judaism or Christianity or Islam, but it's especially galling as a Christian I voted for Trump in.
It is actually kind of crazy because Tucker Carlson is like a media figure, mainstream media figure, has been around for a very long time. I think in the last 2 months, I've probably gotten more reporting, like more negative reporting from both Fox News and also CNN and other like liberal outlets, as opposed to the Tucker Carlson commentary hour. Like Tucker Carlson certainly receives a good deal of that. He's critical of Israel, so obviously he's anti-Semitic narratives, right? He definitely has been on the receiving end of a shit ton of hit pieces, but never to this degree, never to this severity. Perhaps it's because he doesn't say certain things. Like Tucker Carlson is not going to ever endorse any sort of militant resistance against America or Israel, right? He's never going to do that. He just said he opposes mocking Islam. He's not that dangerous. Don't you think his anti-Zionism makes Tucker Carlson less dangerous? Wait, what are you talking about? No, we're talking about dangerous from the perspective of mainstream media, chatter. You're misunderstanding. He's not an anti-capitalist. He actually is a defender of capitalism, and he's not an anti-imperialist.
in 2024. And one of the main...
He's not even
and I
an
never
anti-Zion. He's not even an anti-Zionist. His job isn't to try to explain to people why certain groups that have been dominated for 80 plus years are going to inevitably fight back. At most, they'll say, Hamas and Hezbollah are not my primary concern. What's going on? Why are we even talking about these guys? They're not dangerous to America or whatever, you know?
typically, but I voted for him this last election and campaigned for him in a bunch of cities with him because I felt that there was clear persecution of Christians in this country, people of faith. And it was demonstrable. And I felt that Trump, and I based this on his explicit promises, would be a protector of, never thought Trump was a Christian for a moment, but I thought that Trump, I took him at his word, would be a defender of faith, people of faith who need to be defended. And this country exists to defend them. It's in our charter. So anyway, I was just completely outraged by that.
Since that moment, you've gone even further. You recently said on your show that you'll be tormented for a long time by the fact that you played a role in getting Donald Trump elected. And you said, I'm sorry for misleading people. That's gotten a lot of attention, as I'm sure you know.
I don't know because I don't Google myself ever. But
I would like to understand exactly what you mean. Can you explain?
I'll tell you what I mean. I truly believe that the baseline requirement, the ticket of admission to the conversation is admitting when you are wrong. And I spent 10 years defending Trump on Fox News. I'd probably do it again because on the issues, I agree with him. I never defended a single thing I didn't believe. But at this point, the consequences of this decision are so bad for the United States and for my family and your family that you just have to say it out loud. Like, I'm a small reason. I don't think I moved a lot of votes, but I tried to. I told people.
Is there a greatest hits of Tucker Carlson being a white nationalist so we can exposure therapy some chatters?
Hi, Tucker Carlson's white pilling your dads every night.
On the left, you may have noticed everything is about race. Everything, even things that have nothing to do with race.
So this is from 2018, okay? October 3rd, 2018. 100,000 views on the Young Turks, okay? Ironic because if you search Hassan Piker Tucker Carlson, you find articles comparing me to Tucker Carlson. That's what is at the top of the algo from JNS and whatnot, but here it is.
Tucker Carlson's white pilling your dads every night.
On the left, you may have noticed everything is about race. Everything, even things that have nothing to do with race.
There's one thing Tucker Carlson hates. It's continuing to wear bow ties. That and talking about race. Unless it's about preserving the white race.
Everybody gets a safe space except white men. They are hated and despised. Attacking white men for being white men. Attack white men for their privilege in a whole bunch of ways.
I was handed a box of saltine crackers, and in a group chat during the event, a student photoshopped my face onto a cracker.
This is what Tucker Carlson's doing with Bill O'Reilly's coveted 8 p.m. slot on Fox News, which is currently the third most popular cable news show in the country.
By the way, just to pause, I assume that's a slur against your ethnicity, correct?
I've talked about this on my Twitch a lot, but only the most important subjects are covered on Tucker's show, like white genocide, which is in fact something that the left is advocating for, apparently.
But he did not notably advocate for genocide. A Georgetown professor called Christine Fair did do that.
Imagine being a producer on Tucker's show, constantly scouring the internet looking for blue checkmark Twitter users saying dumb things while they're emotionally distraught in order to make wild claims like that the left is advocating for white genocide. Of course, this isn't how white genocide is actually happening. According to the folks Tucker is mirroring, white genocide is happening because immigration is changing the nation's demographics, and it's being justified by an evil liberal plot called diversity.
Diversity is our strength, they screech, as if that settles the conversation by itself, like a magic talisman.
Diversity. We hear about it nonstop. It's the mainstream motto.
Tucker's relentless attacks against diversity, multiculturalism, and immigrants as a whole are literally identical to white supremacists, white nationalists, and neo-Nazis. They're also reductive and oftentimes completely baseless comparisons.
How precisely is diversity our strength? Since you've made this our new national motto, please be specific as you explain it.
Well, for one, diverse executive boards generate better returns, among countless other studies that show the many benefits of diversity, but I'm sure the biases of racially anxious agitators are more important than empirical evidence.
Can you think, for example, of other institutions, such as, I don't know, marriage or military units, in which the less people have in common, the more cohesive they are?
Well, Tucker, you have the most in common with your family members. Are you suggesting keeping marriage within your family? Why do you want to have sex with your cousins, Tucker? Also, as far as non-diverse militaries,
Interesting that I was doing the inbred joke even as far as back in 2018. For the record, another moment of irony is now the inbred jokes that I use against like Jewish supremacy is now being presented as like the utmost maximalist anti-Semitism. Not new to this, you're true to this. Thank you.
Maybe you should open a history book and take that up with General Robert E. Lee. Go on, Tuck. What else?
Latin American countries are changing election outcomes here by forcing demographic change on this country at a rate that American voters consistently say they don't want.
This assertion is preposterous because, it's completely untrue. Just look at polling data. 75% of Americans say that immigration is a good thing. So who are the Americans you're referring to here? These guys?
It sounds to me like we got a problem with people who got here legally altering the landscape politically. I don't like it. You. Stop it.
But I guess we should just run the country on the white fragility of crying neo-Nazis as opposed to the overwhelming majority of Americans' wishes. But play us out, Tucker. Give us a cherry-picked example that could easily be countered with facts.
Hazleton's population was 2% Hispanic. Just 16 years later, Hazleton is majority Hispanic. That's a lot of change. People who grew up in Hazleton return to find out they can't communicate with the people who now live there. And that's bewildering for people.
Hazleton's a perfect example of immigrants saving a small coal mining town from absolute economic annihilation by opening up small businesses, and even the large immigrant-run corporations who have brought jobs over to the small town. This is, of course, despite the efforts made by the white population to fight off the immigrant scourge with unconstitutional regulations. And even the Nat Geo article that you're using here to advance your narrative mentions the reality that immigration has drastically improved Hazleton. But you won't hear that part because Tucker's not in the business of making America better. He's just trying to do white identity politics. And I'm sorry to tell you this, Tucker, but facts don't care about your feelings. I'm Hassan Piker. If you're...
Was that a little taste for you guys? Was that good enough? Am I crazy? Or is the New York Times podcast lady actually trying to argue insulting Jewish people is worse than the mass murder of children? Oh my God. Oh my God. There ain't no way she did that. Oh God. Of course she did that. If you wanted to present like a perfect vehicle to make people more anti-Semitic, this would be the vehicle to do it with.
This guy will keep us out of the next Iraq. Specifically, will keep us out of a regime change war with Iran. And here we are in the middle of a regime change war in Iran where hundreds of Americans have been wounded. Some number have been killed. They won't tell us. And that's just the opposite of what I said would happen. So I'm sorry.
So I hear you say that, but I am compelled to question it a little bit because are you simply just going public about something that you felt privately for some time? Because in 2021, through the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News, some of your texts went public.
Right.
And I'm just quoting from a couple of them. You know, you said there really isn't an upside to Trump. You said, I hate him passionately. I mean, clearly you had some feelings of reservation about the president.
Without question.
Before this time.
There's no...
Yeah, no, it's because he's a phony. Dude, that is the best one where the Dominion case revealed that Tucker was just like, I hate this piece of shit. God damn it. He's such a son of a bitch. He's ruining the beautiful neo-Nazi movement that we could have designed by being so selfish. He set our movement back. I mean, he wasn't saying it like that, but he was basically saying that, right? Like that is, I hope you guys understand that's precisely what he was angry about.
No doubt.
So I'm just trying to understand the...
You know, I have a lot of thoughts and theories about things which, you know, may or may not be rooted in reality. So I hesitate even to spring any of my theories on you because, like, they're probably insane. But one thing that has bothered me for many years is the fact that a lot of people in Trump's immediate orbit have been hurt and really hurt, you know, gone to prison, become unemployable, publicly shamed, gotten cancer. And I just am a believer in like big picture assessments of things. And, you know, so you're trying to think like, is Trump good or bad? Like he's saying things I really agree with, but then people around him are getting hurt.
Yeah, they got cancer because of January 6th. No, he's talking about people that got cancer while they were in prison, I think. Like some of the January 6ers, right?
Is the country actually getting better? I don't know. It's hard to know because to some extent your vision is obscured by the intensity of some of these debates. Mine is easily obscured by that intensity. But did I have reservations about Trump? Of course. And, to some extent, I sublimated them or rationalized them away or focused on areas where I agreed with him. All my fault. But I told myself, and I to some extent still believe, it's the big decisions that matter. And I knew, because I know the Democratic leadership really well, that they're completely under the control of the same forces and that we would get a regime change war inevitably in Iran if they were elected. And so I told myself, Trump is the way to avoid the really bad thing.
Come back to this moment for you, which is there's the political case against Trump that you make. But I do want to ask you about the moral case that you've been making as well. And that's a word that you've used. In that monologue responding to Trump's Easter post, you said that Trump's comments were evil. And I just want to understand that a little bit better. Do you think only his comments are evil, or does the evil extend to Trump himself? Is he evil?
I just want to be really clear that there's a lot of evil in me and in every person. So I just
When I was calling Trump evil, I was doing Christian style. Now, obviously for us, that's a satisfying statement to hear from Tucker Carlson because he is objectively evil, but he's not doing that right now. I just need you to understand. He's doing when I call people evil, I mean, in the same way that we're all a little bit evil. We're all sinners after all, Christian style. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Don't want to, and I've certainly experienced it in myself, and I've seen it in all people. We're all capable of evil. So I want to pull back on the judgment and be very precise about what I was saying, which is you cannot mock other people's gods and put yourself in their place, period. That is a deal killer for me. That's worse than the war with Iran, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I ask because, you've been talking on your show about whether Trump is the Antichrist.
I have not said that.
On your show the day after Easter.
That's worse. That's worse than murdering little schoolgirls, okay? I just don't think Tucker Carlson or any person sincerely believes that, okay? Disrespecting God, disrespecting Christians and Christianity is worse. Tucker, first of all, you're not a fundamentalist Islamist, okay? Tucker is literally doing the drawing of the Prophet Muhammad is the ultimate sin, and I will fight you to the end. But this time for disrespecting gods, shut the f up. Shut up. You don't believe that. You have in the past openly stated, by the way, that's like ISIS. Tucker Carlson is well, as a Salafist, as a follower and a worshiper of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I consider disparaging the God that we all believe in, the one God, the one true God, Allah, the disrespect to be the ultimate sin, ultimate haram, as we say. Yeah, he called Iraqis monkeys on air, bro. He said Iraqis are primitive monkeys that deserve to be bombed back to the motherfucking Stone Age. People don't know Tucker's background. They're just, that's what it is. When you're around for 30 years, right? And you have been such a target-rich environment for every different kind of reactionary opinion. Most people don't know this motherfucker's background. I remember because I was there. Yeah, now the Ummah loves him.
You noted he did not put his hand on the Bible during his swearing-in ceremony as president. You said, and I'm quoting, maybe he didn't put his hand on the Bible because he affirmatively rejects what's inside that book. And then on a recent show, you went further saying, here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist?
I actually did not say, could this be the Antichrist? Here's a leader who's
This part was
mocking the
funny.
gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows? I don't know where that comes from, but I know that those words never left my lips because I'm not sure I fully understand what the Antichrist is. If there's just one, I actually tried to understand it. I may have said some are asking that. I'm not weighing in on that because I don't understand it. And just to be totally
No, in
clear.
Revelations, obviously, the Antichrist is named in different
Yeah, and not just Revelation, but throughout the New
Yeah.
Testament, there are references and in the prophets as well. So, but no, I'm not speculating about that. I know that people are speculating about that, but I would say it's enough to acknowledge that Trump, like many leaders through history, is putting himself above God. But even on a more terrestrial level, like to send out a picture of yourself as Jesus has got to be a red line for Christians. How could it not be? It has to be. And I wish that Christians would speak up when he attacks Allah, when he mocks the faith of Muslims.
So to be clear, though, that was not what you were suggesting.
If I thought Trump was the Antichrist, I would just say so.
Defending Islam part is he's so good, man. He's such a demonic entity.
I understood what the Antichrist is, I would say so. And I don't really. I mean, I guess
he's packed up the Ummah. The Ummah will never recover. They will wage war at the behest of Tucker Carlson.
Literally, it's
because you've been discussing it repeatedly on your show. So I'm just trying to understand why.
What I've tried to
what do you want your audience to sort of?
I want my audience
considering?
to see what's happening now.
Something chatters aren't internalizing is how shallow Tucker's commitment to any ideology is. They see him saying the correct words in a field of mainstream liars, when in reality he's adopting populism to boost his public image. Look up Sophism. I think so too, but I don't agree necessarily that Tucker Carlson doesn't have one underlying agenda. I think he is truly a white nationalist, or at least white nationalists think he's one of them. He might be agnostic on the Jewish problem, right? The Jewish question, he might be somewhat agnostic on. I still lean on the side that he's just like, he's anti-Semitic, but he knows how to, keep his cards close to his chest. But he and Candace both do what I call ummah slop. They know they have a ton of Muslim followers now because of their anti-Israel advocacy that they throw bones in. The only issue is they break with other Christian nationalists or things that Muslims care about. Yeah, there is nothing more powerful than a white man defending Islam, a white Christian man defending Islam from a position of authority in the eyes of the entire Muslim world. Or, Candace Owens as well. Powerful American Christian woman. Oh, you don't understand, dude. These are going to do numbers in the WhatsApp group chats. Oh my God.
In terms beyond just material. Obviously, the commodity flow through the Strait of Hormuz is, essential to the global economy. Got it. But I also think there is a world beyond our senses. Every culture and civilization has understood that from the beginning of time, and we're in this weird anomalous moment where we've been trained not to think that, but it's real. And this is a realization that's dawning on me. I wasn't thinking like this at all until several years ago. So I don't want to pretend that I'm a shaman or anything like that. I just want to make the point repeatedly, again and again and again, that there are unseen forces that act. There is a spiritual realm, and we are subject to those forces for good and bad. And I don't think that
Bro, this guy once unironically said that he woke up one night and he has scratches all over his body and he thought that there was demonic possession at play. Oh my Lord, it's like such a ridiculous person.
Any person can deny that.
I just want to make the point that you did say, could this be the Antichrist? And then you said, well, who knows? You did use those words. So,
man, then my apologies to you if there's video of me saying that. I guess what I'm expressing to you is it doesn't.
Boom. Yeah. Wow. He's so apologetic. He's so good, dude. He's such a good guy. You see, he's sincere and he's apologetic.
Reflect exactly.
Why are you still pressing him?
How I feel. That suggests a precision that I haven't arrived at. Trump is the Antichrist. Well, you'd have to define. We're sort of quibbling here, but you'd have to define Antichrist, and I know that I can't define Antichrist, and it's not clearly defined in the New Testament.
I'll be honest, like the only thing that I think he has had a sincere change of heart on is the violence of Israel. I do genuinely believe that he found the violence to be unconscionable. I think that is sincere. I'm willing to go that far. Some might. I don't think it's just anti-Semitism motivating him to say the things that he's saying. I don't think it's like his allegiance to the pearl of the Gulf, the nation of Qatar, a beautiful nation that I am, of course. I also demonstrate fealty to. Shouts out to my Oilers. I do think he actually saw what Israel was doing and thought that it was really fucked up. I'm willing to go there. What makes you think that? He went to the Palestinian Children's Hospital in Qatar and he visited, and he didn't have to do that at all.
Testament or Old Testament.
So you're open to the possibility?
I think what we're seeing is evil. Like, are you allowed to kill people who've committed no crime? No. Super simple. You're not allowed to do that. Under no moral standard is that allowable. All of a sudden it's allowable. It's allowable in Gaza, and our leaders are like, yeah, no, it's just totally fine. It's not fine. But it's repugnant to the Christian understanding of the world and the human soul. Every person has a soul. That's the Christian view, and not just the Christian view. It's the Islamic view too. So, and it's my view.
Your Easter episode was titled in part A Warning to Christians Everywhere.
Yeah.
And sort of my interpretation was that you were warning other Christians sort of not to follow a false prophet.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm warning.
And that false prophet being President Trump in this case.
And Netanyahu. There are a lot of evangelical Christians who are convinced that God wants you to support Netanyahu, which I find incomprehensible.
You know, Christian evangelicals in this country have been a hugely important part of President Trump's coalition. Many support Israel because they believe the creation of the state of Israel fulfills biblical prophecy. They're called Christian Zionists. I will note you have said you dislike Christian Zionists more than anybody. You've said they have a brain virus. You have apologized for those comments repeatedly.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Repeatedly.
They have a brain virus? Wait, he apologized for that? Ugh, God. He's such a bitch, too. He can't even say they have a fucking brain virus. Oh, I was so apologetic about that. I can't believe I said some of the most brain-broken, insane people in this country. This is, man, fuck this shit, okay? This is why I stand on my fucking principles, okay? This is why I can't stand motherfuckers who come to me and be like, oh, Hassan, you're not being consistent here. It's like, oh, shut up, bitch.
But would you like to see those Christians stop supporting the state of Israel in the way that they do?
Of course, immediately. On many different grounds, but it's really simple. Christians can never support the murder of innocents, period. That's just a bright red line. Find the place where Jesus is like, these people are annoying, kill them all. It's not there. So where are you getting this? Now, I'm, once again, hardly a theologian, but I just don't know. And I've asked many Christian Zionist leaders who will speak to me. Now it's just like, they won't talk to me, but I certainly asked Ted Cruz this. I asked Mike Huckabee this. I tried to ask Franklin Graham, but I sincerely want to know where this is coming from. It can't all be from the book of Esther.
Well, I mean, you did have exactly this contentious interview with Ambassador Huckabee. He's the ambassador to Israel, where you talked to him about Christian Zionism for quite some time. And in that interview, you know, it's very interesting. I'm a former Israel-Palestine correspondent. You were pressing him on if the modern state of Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people today has legal or biblical legitimacy. You were sort of questioning him on this idea. And you went round and round on this for quite some time. And I was just wondering what you were trying to get at there.
I was trying to get at an answer, which I couldn't get, and instead was accused of hate for trying to evoke an answer to a very simple question. And the question was, on what basis are you making this claim? People whose ancestors didn't live here now occupy the land. That's very common in history, by the way. I'm not even objecting to it. What I'm objecting to is the claim that it's God's will and that Israel, because of this, has the unique right to exist. Okay, where does that right come from? Well, the right comes from the Bible. Okay, well, I'm not a Bible scholar, but I've certainly read it a lot. And I said to him, what are the borders? Because my read of Genesis is that it's a big hunk of land. That's the Middle East. Does Israel have a right? Because you're referring to this text as the basis of the right to have that land. And he said, fine with me. So like on many levels, theological and diplomatic, kind of a big thing to say. The White House was annoyed that he said it out loud. I was grateful that he did because it's good to know what the terms are. And the second question I asked, which is, okay, if Israel has a right derived from this scene in Genesis, then to whom does it apply? Who are Abraham's heirs? And he said, well, the Jews. And I said, okay. And by the way, just to be clear, these are not conversations that I sought. I was never interested in this topic. Like, Israel's a country with borders and sovereignty and a seat at the UN. And it's a nation state like ours, like every country. The second you start telling me that as a Christian, I'm obligated to support the government of this country, then I have a right to ask you what you're talking about. It's that simple. So, okay, fine. I flew all the way to Israel, which I didn't want to do. And I asked him, what are you talking about? To whom does this right apply? And on what basis? Shut up, anti-Semite. Okay, now. So from my perspective, that was like the most revealing conversation I think I've ever had.
Why, though, were you so interested in those questions about?
Oh, God, these people. Oh, my God, you're unfucking bearable, dude. I can't stand this shit. This is, why do you care so much about the Jewish state? Okay? That's what this question is. This is her basically turning around and trying to imply subtly or not so subtly that Tucker Carlson is anti-Semitic for caring about the state of Israel so much. That's what this is. We jokingly refer to it as like Israel, tiny nation, size of New Jersey, but that's precisely what this question is. Okay? I've heard it a million times over. I've heard it from many different people that will sometimes not even do the decent thing and try to soft pedal the question and immediately be like, you care so much about Israel, even though it's not doing anything special because you're anti-Semitic. That's what this conversation is.
Why? Because we're now in a war which is in the process of destroying the United States economy and getting Americans killed because Israel pushed the United States president, who caved. I'm not giving him a pass, but that's just a fact. That's what happened. I saw it. And Israel has that power in our Congress, not because we have so many Jews. I don't know how many Jews live in the United States, fewer than 10 million, I think, but because we have tens of millions of evangelical Christians who unquestioningly support Israel.
Oh, dude, he's doing... This is like early days Hasanabi retorts right here. It's true. It's not wrong for him to say this. It's technically correct. But it is very funny for him to just be like, well, there's a lot more Christian Zionists. There's a lot more evangelical Christian Zionists, and they show tremendous loyalty to the state of Israel. A lot more of them exist than Jews in this country. It's like he's rolled back the tape. Okay, he's been watching old Hasanabi hits from early on. Yeah, aping my shit, 100 P. Oh my Lord.
Because they believe it's their theological duty to do so. So on this question hangs the future of the American economy and the lives of American service members. There's no more important question. And the effort to push me away from that question by calling me names, calling me a hater, saying I'm obsessed with Israel, okay, I would be grateful never to think about it again. I find Israel actually geostrategically irrelevant, except to the extent that we imbue it with relevance at the behest largely of evangelical Christians. So you can see there's a one-to-one correlation between these questions and the future of my country. Mike Huckabee and the people he represents have made it the nation's business, at which point it is entirely fair. In fact, it's a requirement of good citizenship to press him on what are you talking about? And he refused to.
No, it's not shocking that he's going after evangelicals. It's totally normal for him to do that.
To answer those questions, at which point I say, as someone who's still committed to reason, you've been exposed as a fraud and or a liar.
I think one of the reasons why this was particularly notable for many people, that interaction that you had with Mike Huckabee, and the reason you in particular got so much pushback is because there is an enormous sensitivity around Israel being the homeland of the Jewish people.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Oh my God. Who cares? Are you serious? Do you hear yourself? Oh no. This colonial outpost that is an apartheid state, filled to the brim with ethno-religious supremacist values that has conducted a genocide, is also, I'll have you know, the very special emotional support apartheid state that's conducting a genocide. For many people, why don't you think about their feelings? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I was supposed to care about those things. This, in and of itself, is no different than someone being like, oh, you want black people to be able to vote in the South? Well, don't you care about the feelings of white Christian nationalists in the South? They feel like their rights are being encroached on if you actually bring this up, if you actually advance this position. Who cares? I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck.
and the attempt to delegitimize that?
I have enormous sensitivity about the United States being the homeland of my people and the burial place of my ancestors. I have enormous sensitivity about the future of the United States. Those are my concerns. I'm not dismissing the concerns of any other group, including Israelis or Iranians or Venezuelans or anybody else. Everybody has his or her own set of concerns, but my concerns revolve around my country. And so I'm not going to subordinate my concerns and the concerns of my children to other people's hysteria, no matter what country it is.
Why do you think you get tagged so often with anti-Semitism?
Because I think there are two reasons. One is I'm not an anti-Semite, and I think that's obvious. I have, and I've expressed this many times, and I'll do so again, I have temperamental and religious objections to anti-Semitism or any hate or discrimination based on bloodline. That is...
Bro, this man literally said there's 65 million people that need to be deported, which happens to be the same number of Latin Americans living on U.S. soil, the Latino population. I'm sorry. Mr. Great Replacement is like, oh, I would never hate on someone simply on the basis of their ethnic or genetic or religious inferiority. It's bullshit. This is where a competent libtard is supposed to interject and go, I don't think that's true. You are the most prominent defender of the Great Replacement theory. Like, please, be a competent libtard, okay? I have listened to you on NPR for years. I know you have it in you. Please do this.
Against Christian theology. It's against my personal ethics, and I oppose it no matter who is suffering from it, whether it's whites or blacks or Jews. Nobody can be punished for his bloodline, period. I don't believe in collective punishment, unlike the Israeli government. So that's number one. I am opposed to anti-Semitism, and that's a threat because I'm not approaching this as someone who wants to hurt Jews. I just don't want the United States to be implicated in the crimes of other nations, and I'm not intimidated. And number two, that is a much easier conversation than answering very simple questions like...
Here's Ben Lorber's take on this from April 13th, or, I mean, this is so fucking long. He wrote a book. He's working on a book called Kingdom Now, Christian Zionism from the Puritans to MAGA. Israeli right and its supremacist agenda. Today, tens of millions of MAGA evangelicals remain rock-solid constituency in backing the unending carnage in Gaza, Iran, and beyond. And beyond America's shores, the rapid growth of non-denominational neo-Pentecostal Christianity is conscripting hundreds of millions of Christian Zionist foot soldiers across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. That's why they had to apologize for breaking the Jesus statue in Lebanon, by the way. If it actually reaches the point of salience amongst those populations where they start thinking, wait a minute, these Jews are actually disrespecting Christianity, then they have to address it. Same thing with like Orthodox Jews in the West Bank, the settlers spitting on Christians as they're like going in and out of churches and shit, right? Those are some of the few things that the Israeli state has to address, as opposed to like just wholesale slaughter of Palestinians. Christian Zionism is part and parcel of the rise of Christian nationalism, helping corrode the foundations of democratic pluralism in the U.S. and all around the world. I agree with that. Its adherents demonize Palestinians, Muslims, and anyone who opposes the dystopian vision as instruments of the devil, enemies of the Judeo-Christian West, and to be swept aside in a 21st century style crusade. And their fervent proclamations of love for Jews are laced with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism conscripting our communities as cannon fodder in their clash of civilizations.
Where does the right to exist come from that Israel has, that I've been told for many years has a unique right globally to exist? Where does that right emanate from? Who granted that right and on what grounds? And they can't answer the questions, and they don't want to have the conversation. So just to be totally clear, asking questions.
I mean, the answer this is the other side of the story. The answer to this question is the same as the United States of America. America is also a settler colonial operation, right? And so was Israel, and so is Israel, I guess. And that's what it is. It was through blood. It was through conquest. So the answer is the exact same for Israel as it is for the United States of America. Okay? It's built on violence. That's how states were designed.
Is not hate. Telling the truth is not hate. And they don't want to answer the questions, and they don't want to tell the truth. And by the way, it's not just Jews. I think I've been attacked more viciously by Christian Zionists than I have by Jews, just in point of fact. It's a kind of nice universalism to it. But I'm not intimidated. I don't know why I would be. In fact, I think it's my obligation not to be intimidated.
Can asking questions, though, stir up hate? I mean, language is
Oh my God.
powerful.
Well, sure. I mean, you could pose attacks in the form of questions. I've certainly done that a lot, for sure. But the questions themselves hang in the air, and a legitimate question deserves an answer.
The reason I want to press on this a little bit more is that you know that there is an entire anti-Semitic worldview that has been based on the protocols of the elders of Zion, you know, that there is like this cabal of powerful Jews that controls the world. And, you know, that book was written in the early 20th century, but it, you know, helped the Nazis, and it really has informed a lot of the views of many people today that there is, you know, this very powerful sect of Jewish people who want global war and global conflict. And I think that there is a concern that I have, and a real concern. I don't mean this as something that people say to slander anyone, but just a real concern that the rhetoric where everything is blamed on Israel, where Israel has these supernatural powers almost to influence the president, to influence
What a totally ridiculous line of questioning.
the previous president, George W. Bush, to enter into the Iraq War, to, you know, be involved in assassinations, et cetera, that it has echoes of that, and that people are genuinely.
Not everything that she brought up is valid, but it sucks that some of what she brought up are genuine things that Israel has done, right? Like, it's not other people's problem that Israel chose to look at a textbook of what not to do and then chose to do those things, okay? Like, yeah, you're like, oh, well, protocols of elderly Zion dictate that, Jews are undermining, like, what, American domestic affairs. Okay. But Israel is literally fucking writing legislation by way of AIPAC to undermine the First Amendment. Elderly Zion. Yes. Elderly Zion. The Zion of the elderly. Shut the fuck up, chatters. It's not the point. Okay. I'm so tired. I didn't sleep a lot last night, even though I went to bed early. Like, you can recognize what is an anti-Semitic dog whistle and also what is the truth at the same time. When you actually start pointing to things that Israel actually is doing and then claim prototypes of the elderly Zions. Yeah. If you point to what Israel is actually doing and say this is an anti-Semitic trope, you're not going to actually get people to stop saying those things. You're just going to make them think that maybe in the past, those anti-Semitic canards were also lies. They were also built around lies, as in, like, they were what Jews were doing. You're going to foment anti-Semitism. The greatest example I can give you, the most direct one I can give you, okay, no holds barred, is blood libel. Blood libel was a lie that non-Jews often told about Jewish people in times of, like, famine or some kind of, like, economic struggles, or you know, when there was not enough food in the village, or the fucking people were getting sick. The idea was that Jews were responsible for that because they were, like, I don't know, eating children, like drinking the blood of Christian children. That is a blood libel. And this lie was deployed to drive out Jews in pogroms, oftentimes very violently, from the villages that they occupied. So that's a very well-traced, historic lie that people told about Jews to kill Jews. That's what blood libel is. But in 2026, if you turn around and say, wow, how dare you say Israel is killing children when Israel has killed tens of thousands of children on camera, and you call that a blood libel, you're not actually defending Israel at all to average people. You're actually disparaging what they may have previously believed was a blood libel. You're diluting the impact of the term blood libel, and you're causing people to no longer believe that, you know, these things that happened to Jewish people historically were even real at all. because we can see what Israel is doing, especially when you turn around and you tie Israel's actions to Judaism. You're like, no, this is the Jewish state. How dare you accuse the Jewish state of killing children? Well, first of all, you're saying it's the Jewish state. Okay, that's you. And I've seen Israel kill children. What am I supposed to believe? You listen to normies who aren't super into politics describe why they're anti-Israel, and you realize most of them have just never been challenged on it by anyone around them or the media they consume. Exceptionally true for Europeans. It's because they see dead kids on their social media. It's not that hard to understand. Or maybe they just decide to stop dialoguing after they realize they're talking to a pro-child murder psychopath. That's true. It's probably what it is, too. Let's keep going.
That it opens the door to this idea that has been debunked and has been used in, absolutely vicious ways to annihilate an entire people.
Conservapedia? What the fuck is that?
Quite sure.
Debunked and has been used in, absolutely vicious ways to annihilate an entire people.
I'm not quite sure what that means. Let me tell you my concerns. My main concern is the destruction of the United States, and that is in no way to minimize anyone else's concerns, but I have a right to that concern, and I will not have my own concerns hijacked. I will not submit to being told what my concerns should be. I'm an adult man who pays his taxes. I have a right to come up with my own hierarchy of concern. And at the very top is the destruction of my country, which I've lived in for 56 years, and I know that it's not better than it was. And it's not getting better than it was. And there are many reasons for that. One of them is this war, but there are many others. And so people say, well, I'm really concerned. Well, I'm really concerned too. I'm really concerned that the Prime Minister of Israel and his many cheerleaders in American media, including at the New York Times, if I can say, pushed the U.S. government into a war that hurts the United States. That's my concern. And I would say that's at least co-equal with anyone else's concerns. So that's the first thing I would say. Second, as to the elders of Zion or whatever, I don't know what that is. I've heard references to it. It's like a czarist forgery or something. Look,
I guess I'm just wondering what the line is for you.
The line for me is the truth. What is actually happening?
Between criticism. I mean, this is, by the way, a very difficult line. I am in no means purporting to understand necessarily where it is. I'm curious for you where the line is between criticism of the state of Israel and how that could be perceived as feeding into anti-Semitism.
Well, it breaks my heart that it is perceived that way, and that's the product. That perception is the product of a decades-long effort to conflate anti-Semitism with any criticism of the secular government of Israel. Okay, so the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism lists 11 examples of anti-Semitism, and that's been adopted globally. 40 different governments have adopted it as their standard of what anti-Semitism is, and 2/3 of the examples are criticism of Israel. So, I don't get to write these standards. I also don't have to abide by them. And I reject.
Bro, I swear they're fucking way harsher with me than they are with Tucker, by the way.
As ludicrous, out of hand, the idea that the criticism of a secular government is the same as criticism of an entire ethnic group, many of whom do not support that secular government, many of whom reject that secular government, and a lot of those I know personally. So you're just not going to get me on board with the lie that criticism of Netanyahu is hatred of all Jews, because it's not. And I don't care how many times someone repeats that to me. I don't care. And by the way, I've lost friends over this, and I do grieve that. People who are totally convinced that criticism—
Is it just Bibi that you're against, or if there was a different government in Israel, it would be okay?
I'm against anything that hurts my country. Why wouldn't I be? I live here.
No, but I'm just curious, like if there's elections coming up and if Bibi gets kicked out, are you—
I took my family on vacation there.
I'm just trying to
understand. Obviously, I'm not against—
Yeah, this is y'all's hero, anti-Zionist in the chat. Y'all's hero is Tucker Carlson. Mr. He's a better critic of Israel than you.
Israel, I never have been against. By the way, you can check the record. Before maybe 2.5 years ago, I don't think I ever— Well, I certainly never criticized Israel, but I rarely even mentioned Israel. I could give you a long list of the things that I love about Israel, particularly about Jerusalem, which is one of my favorite cities. Jerusalem and Beirut, greatest cities in the world. It kills me to see them at the center of all of this. I think the second that we ban criticism of a foreign country, well, of course, we're not free at that point. We're slaves of that other country. Whatever you can't criticize is the force in charge. I don't think it's, by the way, good for global Jewry to have any of this at all. If you tell 350 million Americans that it's against the law, and it's very close to against the law at this point, it's against the law to criticize Israel, how does that help the perception? Does that feed anti-Semitism? I think it does. Not that it's my job to monitor or regulate this stuff, but I mean, just common sense would tell you that's not good. If you want to make the case on behalf of anything, any idea, including ones I disagree with, make your case. Tell me why it's a good idea. And we're falling out of that habit and instead trying to hurt people who disagree with us. And I just will always reject that. I guess I'm the liberal.
I would say it's not exactly against the law, but I understand you're
someone
referring
was someone was just arrested. Because look, the
specific things that
the second you say that criticism is the same as a threat or words or violence, then of course it's very easy to arrest people, as they are arrested in Great Britain. They've had hundreds of people arrested in Great Britain for criticizing Israel. I don't know why any liberal-minded, and I'm in that group, liberal-minded, you have a right to your views, I have a right to mine. I don't know why any liberal-minded person will go along with this and not say, whoa, 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 this is totally bonkers, and this is the road to totalitarianism. And I would say that about any topic.
I'm going to move on, because we've talked about some fissures that have emerged among conservatives over Israel.
I mean, he just fucking owned that. That was like, and once again, the reason why he cooked in this otherwise polite conversation is because her framework is just busted. An expert here would at least keep the conversation on Tucker's past statements and keep holding him to account for his dangerous conspiratorial thinking, his advocacy around the Great Replacement, things of that nature. But they want to prove a point. They want to, in the New York Times, they want to have a conversation with Tucker, and they want to have it on Israel. And if you have a conversation with Tucker on Israel, it's only going to benefit Tucker Carlson, especially if you're not coming correct with quotes that he has that you could at least massage to come across as anti-Semitic. It's going to be very difficult for you to do that, because Tucker Carlson, unlike myself, will not go beyond a certain point in his anti-Israel advocacy, right? Because he doesn't believe in certain things. He's not an anti-Zionist, for example. I am, and I don't shy away from revealing that position. That's precisely the reason why it's much more difficult for the New York Times to just like maintain a liberal Zionist position and try to like attack him on, you know, possible instances where what if what you're saying could be seen as anti-Semitic. They always hit him over the least objectionable things he said. If you're trying to accuse him of anti-Semitism, hit him on the Great Replacement, his World War II revisionism, his comment about how hummus eaters killed Charlie Kirk and Jesus. There's a lot there, but no, we got to do the greatest hits instead. Yeah.
In the war, right? You've talked
Fissures,
about,
it's sort of blown up.
Yeah. And I want to dig into that because earlier this year you told Megyn Kelly that there is, quote, a huge scramble, and you said, I'm in the middle of it to define what the Republican Party is after Trump.
Yep.
So boil down the scramble for me. Are there two sides?
Well, I lost that scramble.
Yeah. I mean, is it driven by ideas, personalities? I mean, something else? Like, what do you see happening?
Look, I mean, there have been disagreements over foreign policy within the Republican Party for
it's just crazy to have
really
the most prominent defender of the Great Replacement theory sitting across from you.
There was no disagreement at all. It was a neoconservative party completely. I was part of that for sure, and unthinkingly and then unwillingly, but whatever. But since 2015, there's been this kind of debate like, well, you know, what is the appropriate use of American power? And what is our relationship with Israel? And those have been sort of sotto voce debates. But it's only with this full regime change effort against Iran that they've become untenable. Like, you can't. I mean, my own view is I'm always happy to eat with and talk with people I disagree with. I guess I'm the liberal here. But there is a strong sense among the neocons who've completely taken over the Republican Party that anyone who disagrees cannot be allowed, like literally in the White House. Okay, I don't make these rules. I feel sad about it for a bunch of reasons. I would say as a political matter, the constituency for that is very small. There aren't, 150 million people in America who are really excited about the Iran war or who are ever going to be excited about that. So you're dooming your party to irrelevance when you do that. I don't know why they would want to. They hate Trump. The neocons hate Trump, have always hated Trump. I had a first row seat to this. And now they've destroyed him. And I told them that. I said, these are people who hated you from day one. They couldn't control you. They hated you for that reason. What you said about the Iraq War inflamed them. It humiliated them, and they want to destroy you, and this war will destroy you. I said that point blank right to him. And it's true. And it's, I think, proven true now.
And what do you mean about you being in the middle of it and losing the scramble?
Well, because Charlie Kirk and I think we're the only people, I'm confident in saying we're the only people in June of 2025 to say to the president, this is a very bad idea. The people pushing this are trying to get you involved in a regime change war. You've campaigned against that. Don't do this. And then on September 10th, Charlie was murdered by a lone gunman. So by the time this latest round happened in January and February, I think I was the only person who said that to Trump for a bunch of reasons. So now it's, we know who won.
Really convenient for the other guy who agrees with you to be dead so you can pretend. No, Charlie Kirk has openly said things. Charlie Kirk has openly and aggressively demanded that Trump not go to war, not listen to the neocons, and not go to war with Iran. This is true. The difference, of course, is that if Charlie Kirk was alive right now, the prophet Charlie Kirk, peace be upon him, if he was alive right now, he'd be defending it because he was Trump's guy. That's it. What he said or what his true opinions are totally secondary. His primary objective was to unconditionally and uncompromisingly defend Donald Trump. That's it. He has done this. He has demonstrated his tendency to do this with the Epstein stuff. Oh my God. It's like you guys don't know. It's almost like you haven't read the fucking hadiths.
We are Charlie Kirk. We carry the flame.
That's just how it is. That's how he was. That's why I don't believe the whole he was going to turn on Israel shit.
And by the effects. So this was, from my perspective, was a debate between people who thought it was wise to use American power in the way we're now using it and those who thought it was dangerous. And Trump did it, so obviously he rejected my view.
I want to stay, though, with how some of this is playing out, because, as you mentioned, you were very close to Charlie Kirk before he was killed. And he started Turning Point USA, which is this very influential group among young people on the right. And you're now seeing some on the right who are questioning whether Israel had a hand in Charlie Kirk's murder. And I should say the theories that Israel was linked to Charlie's death were denied by Israel. There's been no proof of that at all. And crucially, this theory has been condemned by Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow. Do you still have a relationship with Turning Point USA?
Well, I have always loved Erica Kirk. I met her when she was dating Charlie and thought so much of her. I know a lot of people at Turning Point. I was the headliner for a bunch of different Turning Point events. I haven't been asked to do it this year. Don't know if I will be. Never said a word against Turning Point. I think it's been a really, I was their headliner for a bunch of years, so obviously I supported it. I would hate to see it hijacked by its donors to become an oracle of neoconservatism.
Dude, Trump is a fucking neocon. What is this? Oh, God, I hate neoconservatism. He was a neocon. He probably still is a neocon. Like, sure, the Iran stuff is a bridge too far. Maybe Israel got out of hand, okay? You've rebranded yourself. But, like, everything is neocon. Everything computer, everybody transgender, Republican Party neocon. That's what it is. The ultimate purpose of neocons was to do what Trump is doing right now. I can't believe how hard Tucker is clapping and smiling for Trump after kidnapping Maduro at this White House meeting with oil executives about how they're going to pillage Venezuela. Yeah. No one gives a shit, though. They just like Tucker Carlson at this point. He was able to sneak himself in to a position of great prominence and legitimacy in the anti-Israel movement. And so you can't get people to literally look at him funny. It's crazy. Now, his name is Fucker Carlson. Yeah, this is Fucker Carlson. This is his brother, Buckley Swanson. Ugh.
I think it'd be pretty hard to do because its members are not for that. Young people are not for that. People of draft age are especially not for that.
I mean, when was the last time you spoke to Erica Kirk?
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
By text. So my concern, and this is not about Erica Kirk or Andrew Colvett or any of those people with whom I've never had a crossword and hope never to have a crossword. But my concern more broadly is about the investigation into Charlie's murder, which was short-circuited by the FBI. And I'd like to know why. And I don't care to be screamed at for asking that question. It's a legitimate question, and we know that. I know that for a bunch of reasons. But the public knows it because Joe Kent said it out loud and explained it. He's the head of the National Counterterrorism Center. He's an ODNI. And he was told by the FBI that he could not investigate it. And as a friend of Charlie's, I'm not going to be intimidated into saying the following, which is,
Rose
on
on
what
his
grounds
phone,
would you
though?
do that? I'm not saying the guy who's been arrested didn't pull the trigger. I'm not, there's been no trial.
He was obviously handed over by his father.
Do we know that? I don't know what I know because there hasn't been a trial yet. And again, it's like so many things. And it's not just Israel. It's not just Charlie Kirk. It's the existence of NATO or the way the economy is structured. Why is capital taxed at half the rate of labor? Like, that's a question that bothers me. In every case, shut up. Socialist, racist, conspiracy theorist. It's like, I'm just too old for that. Why don't you answer the question? That's my job.
Do you think Turning Point's influence has
I hate when he emotes. I find that to be so terrible.
waned since Charlie's death?
I haven't the faintest idea. I do think that, I agree with most Americans when I say I think this war's a disaster. It's impossible to see how it helps the United States. And, I would like to see all self-described conservative groups pressure the president, as Charlie did, to minimize the damage. And then I hope Turning Point is working on that. I don't know the answer, but I certainly hope they are. So they should. I can't say confidently Charlie would be working to do that.
Obviously, Turning Point is just one organization trying to reach youth on the right, but you also have Nick Fuentes, the far-right white nationalist influencer who's called Hitler effing cool, who also has a huge following among young right-leaning men. How do you see Fuentes in terms of the future of the right?
It's so hard to know. I'll tell you my instinct on it. Most of the debates about race, ethnicity, religion, to some extent immigration, are less resonant long-term than debates about economics. I think the main frustration among young people is not just that the composition of the country is changing too fast, which it definitely is, but the main concerns are about the lack of economic opportunity for American young people who are totally screwed at like a more profound level than people acknowledge. Older people do not acknowledge that. I had dinner the other night with a bunch of kids from Stanford, really smart. They're at Stanford. And one of them said, oh yeah, his best friend just graduated with a degree in computer science last year, has not been able to find a job. Stanford computer science, can't find a job. So that's like a window into the total destruction of the economic opportunity for young people. And what looks to me as a non-economist, like the true hoarding of capital by a tiny group of people. It looks like a very lopsided and unfair economic system that is guaranteed to radicalize young people, and not just young people, but especially young people. And so I think most future conversations politically will be about economics. I do think that. I think we're at sort of the last stage. This is the last time the U.S. has ever been.
So you see, what I'm trying to understand is you see that as Fuentes' power waning?
For sure. Well, I don't know Fuentes in particular. I mean, never even wasn't even aware of Fuentes. I mean, again, I'm just in a different world, right? Okay, so I read the New York Times or whatever. Like, I'm just older, okay? So I'm not an expert on Fuentes' reach or even what he's saying day to day. I really don't know. But he has been caricatured as a race guy, which he may be, by the way. It was like mad about the Jews or black.
I mean, he interviewed him.
But I'm just telling you, I think the future, the energy, not just on the right, but I think right and left agree on this, under 30, is that young people have been shafted by older people, particularly by the baby boomers, people born between 46 and 64. And I think they're right about that. I do think that's like the most selfish generation, most loathsome, mediocre generation this country ever produced. Not all of them, but in general, I would say their behavior has been shameful and selfish. And I hear young people talk not about, I'm mad at the Jews. I hear young people say things like, only baby boomers would like have a second home in Isle of Palms, South Carolina, but like not help their kids buy homes. That's what I hear. I hear people who understand that their lives will bear no resemblance to the lives of their parents and grandparents, and they're really upset about it. Meanwhile, there are all these people making billions on clearly fraudulent enterprises, crypto-related enterprises and other enterprises that are like not adding to the sum total of prosperity in this country and not making the country better. So that's where I think the radicalism is going to start. The murder of that healthcare executive in New York, the health insurer guy, I'm against all murder, just to be totally clear. But I was surprised but not really shocked by the reaction, the positive.
Oh my God, he's literally saying, okay, it's fucking hard for me to not be a little disturbed by this, because he is saying literally every bar for bar, verbatim, the shit I've said. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Reaction. All these kind of normal looking people on the internet are like, I'm glad they killed him. They don't even know his name. However, that reflects this revolutionary frustration. And I do think it's revolutionary. I think one of the reasons that Trump is apparently going to make weed legal is just so we can lower testosterone levels even more. Just make people more passive. Have some more benzos. Like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Because it's—
and then he just flips it back to he just flips it back to social conservatism and a prohibitionist attitude. Incredible. I guess that's a way to redirect it, you know? Oh, I can't. Look, I'm tired. I got to end it here.